All right, so I like this little photo up here. Does anyone feel this way?
Yeah.
One way? Who's the one behind the window? That's me. Like I'm ready to go.
The day after Halloween, there was Christmas decorations all over.
Yeah. It used to not be like that.
Exactly.
There's already Christmas lights.
Maybe when you get
Oh,
your
yeah.
new
Yeah.
house.
When I come home at night and nasal, every block I go down there, it's like,
Everybody's already rolling out the flag to have a 14th.
My tree doesn't really go up till after Christmas because
It's a
I don't want to look at pictures later and wonder was it Thanksgiving or Christmas.
I'm a Thanksgiving baby, so I'm like, how I look at it.
I got in.
Okay, so does anyone have for the last Sunday here before Thanksgiving? Anyone have a story they want to share of moments, memories that they've had for Thanksgiving? Not Christmas, Thanksgiving. What it's like, what y'all done or don't do, or could be bad memories, but hopefully, give me a good memory.
I'll throw out a humorous, good memory.
Well,
Back before everything blew up, urban-wise, when it was all rural, my family, we used to go to Hazlitt, when it was actually countryside Hazlitt, and my aunt had 2 acres or something, trailer house, and horses and cattle, and we're out there, it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas, but still the story. So, yeah, and my middle brother, who I just got back in contact with, wants to pick these, so we can go that route. But they put him on a calf in the chute, and then open the chute and shoot him with the shocker, the little cattle prong.
Cattle prong, yeah.
The calf takes off, bucks him off, and face first into bad stuff.
Cow pies.
And the cow patty.
Yep.
So, that's a memory.
All right, that sounds delicious.
Probably-
Thanks for sharing that one.
Well,
But I actually understand that.
okay, I'm sorry.
No.
But just for a humor, huh?
You probably know
Oh, I thought you said I'm funny. Funny, haha, not funny. This is.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to share?
well, for us, Christine's not from here, so she doesn't have family here. Family, we don't speak stuff, so usually Thanksgiving we don't do anything. We don't
You don't speak, so y'all do a lot of texting. Is
Well,
that what you
text
meant?
your parents and
I'm
call
just
their
kidding.
parents all the time.
Just kidding.
We didn't do any kind of like family meals for years. A little bit of food at the house and stuff. Luckily, now we have a church family. Miss Kayla, for the last, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years, we've gone to the Locke's house and to her parents' house and stuff. So they invite us over for, usually if we're here during Christmas time, we go for Christmas. Thanksgiving. Started out with Thanksgiving dinner, and now we're considered part of the family.
Think about that story. Thought it was like his family or something. They were corresponding, and she invited him over for Thanksgiving. Showed up, and they were complete strangers, and now he shows up.
Yeah.
It's just so cute. Now he invites like his family and.
One more story.
Another one. This week, I went from going to Louisiana on Monday, getting stopped in Tyler, and returning. Being told that we were on the verge of going to Colorado. Going back to Louisiana on Tuesday, being told that I was going to work however long I had to, come back and be paid to sit at home Friday so I could leave yesterday to go to Colorado, being told we were going tomorrow. We're told Friday. So, and now I'm not picking Friday. I'm overweight, but out of breath. I got carried away cooking and all this, but yeah, we don't do much as a family either. So I almost had to depart and be away from my family. I told the pastor, and they both agreed. When the trains go off the tracks, nobody cares what day it is. They have to be uprighted. They have to have the mess cleaned up, and we're going to transfer chemicals. That's what our specialty is. Luckily, got pushed back till Friday because it's in front of a $15 million house or something on their property. And one of my bosses said, I'm sure that guy don't want us working in front of his house.
Yep. One more story. Any past memories from Thanksgiving? And I don't know if I shared this. Hey, how you doing? So last Thanksgiving was my last Thanksgiving with my uncle, and my uncle, he was pretty much my everything. He's the one that I would go during the summers and help raise cattle and ride horses and build fences. We had he had close to 400 acres, and it was a lot of hard work. But I looked up to the guy. Every Sunday we went to church when I was down there. And I remember we were at my parents' and he sat down. Actually, I had to help him bring in because his neuropathy was kicking in, and my aunt was afraid he was going to drop the food, but he actually did pretty good. He carried a lot of stuff in and walking in and talked. We talked about life, how police work was going, how this and that, just stories. And I love to hear him talk. I love to listen to him. I just like to be in his presence. There's just something about it. I like being there. And so this Thanksgiving, I could see it going to be hard for me because he's not going to be there anymore. You know, he passed away from good. Well, he was on dialysis, but from walking in to sit at the table to have dinner with him to now, he's just a memory we have to think about at every. And he was kind of the glue on that side of the family. And so I'm going to miss him greatly. I'll try to honor him as much as I can, as long as I can remember. My kids will know who he is. But it was a good time. I liked him around. I loved him. He taught me a lot. And so that's my Thanksgiving story this year. Huh? A&M uncle. That's kind of the reason I'm dressed up today. Now he always dressed up in suits, but I like to dress up when it's close to the holidays, like Thanksgiving, Christmas. On the day when we go to someone's house, I like to dress up, not in a suit. Probably not even then. I do wear jeans, but I like to dress up as much as I can, that's how thankful I am and show honor to the ones that have opened up their house and is cooking food. You know, they're preparing. At least I can show my appreciation. I'm not saying y'all have to do that, okay? It's just me. My wife will tell you, it's just me. But he used to dress up all the time. And so that's another way to honor him. But today's lesson is worthy of that. It's a tough lesson, and I hate to have this lesson before Thanksgiving, but yet it kind of fits in pretty good. And so we will go over today. So if you have to leave, I understand. I'll try not to go over, and I'll try to not end our day in doom and gloom. So anything else on that before I move forward? So those are just juice inside those wine glasses, okay? I'm not trying to promote alcohol, okay? It's cider. Thank you. Cider. Okay, moving on. Okay, so if you'll turn your Bibles or your phones to Mark chapter 15. We are coming to a close, to an end. Not today, but very close to ending in Mark. But while you're turning there, I got a few questions for you. So, what do duck hunters like to eat with their cheese?
Crackers.
Quackers. Where do cows go camping? Upstate New York.
Got one.
I don't know. No, my time. What's a deer's favorite place to get ice cream?
Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen. And then, where do they like to get? Where's their favorite place to get coffee? Starbucks. Anyway, those were for free. Thank you for the courtesy laughs. Just send that joke to me, Charles. I may use it next time. All right, Mark 15, 24 through 39. We're going past to where I'm going to stop today. So just remember that. So 15:24. Does anybody actually want to read that? Anybody?
I'll read it.
Okay. 24.
It's 24?
24 through 39.
Okay. Then they crucified him and divided his clothes, casting lots for him, to decide what each would get. Now it was 9 a.m. when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge written against him was King of the Jews. They crucified 2 criminals with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by were yelling insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "Ha, the one who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Save yourself by coming down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests with the scribes were mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross so that we may see and believe." Even those who were crucified with him taunted him. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. And at 3, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema?"
Eloi, Eloi, lima sabachthani.
Which is transferred, my God, why have you abandoned me?" When some of those standing there heard this, they said, "See, he's calling for Elijah." Someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, fixed it on a stick, offered him a drink, and said, "Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down." Jesus let out a loud cry and breathed his last. Then the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. When the centurion who was standing opposite him saw the way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God."
Thank you, John. Now you see where we're at here, talking about the crucifixion here just before Thanksgiving. So I had to figure out how that ties into Thanksgiving. It really does tie into it because we know the end result. But in Psalms 22:18, so let's go back to 24. So it says, "Then they crucified him and divided his clothes, casting lots for them to decide what each would get." So this is almost like a prophecy, fulfilling of a prophecy. So I have it written up here. If you go back to the Old Testament in Psalms 22:18, it even describes what will happen. "They divided my garments among themselves, and they cast lots for my clothing." And it was written around 587 BC, okay, before Christ. And we're assuming that King David wrote it. Now, he had scribes to write all that stuff, but it was his words. And once again, he was fulfilling probably a prophecy. So when the Romans crucified someone, you guys will know this because we talk about this all the time, and so that's why I'm ending it a little bit early in the verses, and we'll get to it. But the soldiers carrying out the execution typically had rights to his clothing. In this case of Jesus, the soldiers were determining how to divide his garments. And so it's quite possible at this time that Jesus was naked. Quite possible. What we see portrayed in the movies, or in like figurines, show or plays, is what I was thinking of, that they put on at churches. You know, of course, they want to show the clothes on, but it doesn't really tell the full story. And so these soldiers were just like, that's what it means. They were casting lots. They were deciding who was going to get what, which I don't think he had a lot anyway on him. Much of it was pretty much red of his blood. So in verse 26, the inscription of the charge written against him was the King of the Jews. Now, we've talked about this when I first started. I think we were in Luke. I think we were studying Luke then. But we had talked about how it's written, the King of Jews, and the priest didn't want that on there because it just showed. I'm getting ahead here. So Isaiah 53:12 up there kind of correlates with this. Once again, an Old Testament. Therefore I will give him the many as a portion, and he will receive the mighty as spoil, because he willingly submitted to death and was counted among the rebels. Yet he bore the sin of many and interceded for the rebels. Once again, another prophecy fulfilled. So it was not an honorable death, according to them. It was another form of mockery. Jesus didn't stick out as anything but a joke to these men. Okay. Priest wanted the scribe to be written, what was up there, written differently. But they were denied. It was already written. They didn't want people to think that, or they didn't want to have that feeling of they just crucified the king of them. And there's a lot more study to that, but I want to keep going. Anything on top of that? Anything? Okay, moving on. Verse 27. They crucified two criminals with him, one on his right and one on his left. So why highlight that Jesus was crucified with criminals? What's your thoughts behind that? And it's interesting that it's three, right? I talked about this last week, that the number three just keeps coming up. Okay, 3 crosses, raised from the dead, 3 days, 3 days rose. And the timing was at 3 p.m. But back to the question, why even mention that he was crucified with these criminals? Fulfill the prophecy. Yep. Anybody else on that?
Born in a manger, and I'm going way back up, and dumb in a manger, and nothing, had nothing. Now he's being crucified with nothing, and with the lame or the criminals as a criminal. So basically, he had nothing. He came into the world with nothing. Not royalty, just to use that word as well, and then died.
Probably just to show, probably just for the people around there to see that, okay, they looked at Jesus as equal to everyone else that are criminals. They really wanted to shove it, uh, they just wanted him to be shown equal as criminals. And so 29 through 32, where are we at here? Those who passed by were yelling insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "Ha! The one who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Save yourself by coming down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests with the scribes were mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross so that we may see and believe." Even those who were crucified with him taunted him. We see the height of these people hurling insults at Jesus and using his own claims and distortions of his words to mock him. In John 2, so the Jews replied to him, "What sign will you show us for doing these things?" And I'm reading this so you'll know why they're mocking him, what they are talking about. Okay, and it comes to this: Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days." They remember his words, so now they're using his words against him. How bad do you have to hate someone to rub it in when they're down? Get the last word. You ever have someone like that, or you have feelings towards someone like that in your life? Just for y'all to answer. Do you really ever really have ill intentions like that? How bad do you have to hate someone to rub it in? Get the last word. Do you ever have someone like that, or you have feelings towards someone like that in your life?
Something like that, but when that time comes around, it doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of good person, that doesn't make you good. No, it doesn't. No, they've done me wrong. Come back around again.
When I was working midnights, share one of my police stories. I had this couple that would call constantly. Oh man. And she was a heavy drinker, a heavy smoker. I mean, every time we went to the house, we would warn officers that were going there not to go into that house because you'll smell like that house for the rest of your career. It was bad. It was just bad. And her claim was, "My husband keeps beating me." Okay. So, which we take that very serious. First, second, third time. Once we understand what's actually going on. So we get there and she can't really talk. She's just intoxicated. And the husband's outside. He's outside and he's like, "Well, y'all might as well just park your patrol car here because y'all here so often." And so I just got mad at her and I said, "Listen, I need you to stop doing this to your husband because eventually I'm going to take action in this and it's going to hurt all of you guys. If he's really doing this, then I need to protect you. I do. It's my job. And just know he'll go to jail because of your claim." "Well, I don't want to go to jail because I need the money." And I hear that all the time. even the real serious ones. And it's one of those calls that you know nothing's actually happened. But man, did we get tired of this lady calling? It was on the dot at whatever, I can't remember, like 3 o'clock in the morning. And they were up, and she, the same thing. And then when he did show up and you showed her a little bit of kindness, she started hitting on you. You know, it's like, oh my, let's not do this right now. You know, it's, so I told the guy, I said, listen, you're about to go to jail because she's making these claims, and by law, if she shows anything on this, that you're going to go to jail, and you have to present that in front of a judge. Oh, but you know she's not telling the truth. I said, no, it's just between you and her. I have no idea. And it got to the point where we just got tired of this lady. You just know it wasn't real. But we just got tired of this lady calling. And you got to the point where you're like, man, I just wish, you know, and I'm going to say this, and I'm sorry, and I'll ask for forgiveness later, but I wish that alcohol would kill her. I know it's bad. I am a Christian, but I have problems. Did I really want that to happen to her? No. Okay. But I warned the guy, and there was a time where I ended up taking him to jail on that charge. And of course, she would say, no, it didn't really happen, and then she would get charged. But luckily, I moved on to a different area. I didn't have to deal with it. But I saw her on the street before I went into being an officer, a school resource officer, and she was homeless now. She looked out of her mind. She had lost, I didn't even almost recognize her. And I even called out her name, and she didn't even know who she was. Officers are like, do you know that lady? I said, yeah, here's her name, date of birth. We all know who she is. And she's out of her house, and she's homeless now. And I feel bad for her. But those were one of those moments, I kind of went off on there. It's one of those moments where I wish something bad was going to happen to her because I got tired of dealing with it. Now I feel bad that I said that. Now she's homeless, probably 6 feet under. But anyway, so back to that. Anyone else on that is willing to ask for forgiveness later on a story like that? Okay, good. It's that moment knowing what will actually happen after reading this. It's like that sweet revenge that we all already know is coming, like the mic drop moment. When they are we're back to this. When he tells them what's going to happen, and we already know because it's written here what's actually going to happen. And they're sitting there mocking him. It's like, yeah, you wait, buddy, it's coming. Just wait, it's coming. Yes, sir.
I'll keep my story short. But my brother, like I just said, contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to put our past in the background and move forward. He said, I called him back a week later. He went to rehab or whatever, but I was like, you really want to know what you did to offend me? He goes, yeah. I said, well, you ran your mouth, told everybody you were going to go to the Marine Corps, get out of basic training and come back and whip me. And it never happened. Every time you wanted to challenge me or whatever, you never wanted to step in the backyard. So we can move forward now. But yeah, we're trying to move forward.
Verse 33. Where am I at here? Oh, when it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. So for 3 hours, it was dark, very, very dark. Even nature couldn't bear what was happening. The nature itself, God's judgment bringing darkness. It's as if all of creation was mourning the death of the King of Kings. Anyone seen those stories where the dog, I haven't seen a cat story because they're from the devil, but you ever seen the dog story where
I made that quite known. Sorry if you are.
neither are my dogs. But anyway, the owner passes away and the dog stays around, like knows the owner and mourns when they know it's something wrong. So, Kath will just eat. I mean, anyway,
One of my uncles, grandparents, they had his wife, and then when he was kicked off, he was in two months. And it was, I mean, it was like you could see when you went over there. I mean, it's just sad. And now Callie's still alive with my Aunt Kathy. And Callie's sad because Lindsay's not there. But it was one of those things that Lindsay, oh yeah, we're on. Lindsay, she's heartbroken.
When I'm out of town, my dog will crawl up on my side of the bed and lay on my side of the bed. My wife will send me pictures.
so this next portion is where pretty much where we'll end. Doesn't mean we're close to an end. That's where we'll end. Verse 34, and it was 3. Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eloi, 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 lema sabachthani, which is translated, my God, why have you abandoned me? So I want to read right quick in Psalms 22, 1 through 2 first. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far from my deliverance and from my words of groaning? My God, I cry by day, but you do not answer by night, yet I have no rest. So I'm letting y'all sink that in. When y'all hear this, and I don't hear it from the pulpit very often, because this is a hard topic to truly preach on, because there's a lot of working parts here, and I have to try to, I want to say dumb it down to where I understand. Okay, and if anyone has any other ideas on this, please share with me. But what was actually happening here? My God, why have you abandoned me?
Basically crying,
Mhm.
knowing that look away. How I feel that President would say,
This is a verse that's so overlooked, and this actually applies to us as parents and as kids and as followers. Did God actually abandon Jesus? The answer is no. Okay, He didn't abandon Jesus, and so I want to explain it like this for a second. How I best can try to explain it, and it's in my head, and my wife knows it's hard for me to explain things that's in my head. So she just kind of gives up. It's like, you know. So what I imagine is something like this. Okay. We have the Almighty here, right? And God sees sin. Okay, sees sin. Okay, and this is the sinners. Okay, these are all sinners with sin. Okay, I'm not going to draw those stick people. It took me an hour to draw that one. Okay, so what kind of sin do we have? We have lust. We have what else? What? Adultery. What? Lying. What? Gluttony. Thank you for gluttony. What? Since I ran out of umbrellas, that yes. So, but I want to put down murder. Okay, murder. And out of these, which one is the greatest? They're all.
By definition, would it be murder?
Humanity.
It would have,
Humanity.
no, and I agree with what you're saying. Black and white.
Take somebody else's life.
So what God sees is just an umbrella type of the same umbrella, the same sin. The umbrella represents sin, okay? And I'm running out of, and the blues already, okay? So it took a prophet that God could actually see to help deliver his people, right? And what did the people have to do in order to become rightful with God back in the Old Testament? They offered a sacrifice, right? A sacrifice, a lamb, sacrifice, the blood, right? That's what God saw, okay? Doesn't mean their umbrella disappeared, maybe for a minute, but the umbrella came back, okay? And so here we are at the cross, our Savior on the cross, which we know as our sacrifice, well, God's blood sacrifice, right? So what we have is we have a parent, and we'll get into this. We have a parent, a God, that's allowing his son to go through this. God's still here, right? But what's happening now? God's taking all of our umbrellas that these people no longer have to go to a prophet or to a priest to ask for forgiveness and sacrifice the lamb, because we know Jesus is the actual sacrifice and lamb during this time, right? So what happens is now we have a darkness, okay? Jesus is now taking everyone's umbrella, okay, which is the exact same sin as everything. Now Jesus had no sin, right? He was perfect, but he was taking all of this sin from us. That now, if you sin, he is now the rightful heir. You pray to Jesus. You don't have to go to a priest or a prophet to ask for forgiveness, for he will take that umbrella away. Okay? But God is still here during this time, but he knows his son has to get all of these sins. So this sin created a large darkness, okay, that as soon as he, and we've read the rest, when he breathed his last breath, all of a sudden, it is finished. Okay? So, did God abandon his son? The answer is no. So, Jesus, as a human, came here as human, wanted us to see the pain that it took of all that sin, to show the pain. And I believe a part of that is for us to understand that through our pain, through our umbrella, our God is still here. Okay? He is still there. We just have to call out to him to make that umbrella disappear. That's my explanation, and I'm sure there's better explanations out there. That's my elementary education coming out on me. Okay? Let me read the rest of my notes here, and we'll comment about this, and we'll talk about it if you see it a different way, okay? But as our ascended and ever faithful high priest, Jesus Christ, still fully human, identifies with us in our human feelings of abandonment, alienation, shame, and scorn because of sin. Jesus voluntarily identified with sinners by experiencing these emotions while remaining sinless. God the Father, God the Son, the Holy Spirit allowed evil men to crucify Jesus and allowed him to die a cursed, humiliating death. He assumed our experience of forsakenness to overcome that death, to heal it, thus renewing our communion with, belonging to God. Never, however, did God abandon Jesus. Never was the Trinity broken. Never was Jesus left alone, abandoned by God. And never are we left alone or abandoned. For God says, "Never will I leave you, nor will I forsake you." And it took me all week to put that together in words. And I had a moment. I had a moment writing this. It was tough. And so let's move on to this question. Okay. I know it's been sitting up there, and I hope a lot of this is understandable. Y'all can understand it hopefully easier. Was there a time in your life that you went through so horrific you honestly asked God, why did this happen? Why them or me, or so much that you question God's existence? Have you ever had that experience in your life? Does anyone would like to share either this or even comment on that?
Almost 2 years with Thanksgiving, they have Thanksgiving with that. And my kids were there, my parents wasn't with me, and we saw my dad Thanksgiving. He was fine. And I got a call the next day at work that he didn't wake up. That was rough. I remember having to drive home to him from work, screaming in my car. I did. Oh my God. He was only 49, but he was like my dad said, had heart issues that they couldn't figure out what it was because he couldn't say it. And I remember it took me a while to get past that. My mom is the strongest thing I ever know because of this. And I don't remember her ever, like I was talking to her about it the other day, and I questioned why one time. But after that, I knew it was okay. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Because I still have moments to this day where I'll be like, why did you take that? Because a lot of it was like, that Thanksgiving night, we had to come back because he was working. I had to go to work. And I usually always, every time we left, I give my dad a hug, say, love you, bye, and go. But we were like, go, and it was late. And drive 2 hours back, loading the kids, like moving the kids stuff from our car to their car. And I just didn't say bye. I didn't say love you. Didn't give them a hug. And that really, and I mean, I feel like I said,
Yeah, it's tough. And I am not looking forward to losing my parents. It's going to be not going to be good. I'll move on. So listen to this for a minute.
Mom thought. Here.
And what was her name? That's right. Hmm. That's tough. That's tough. I'm not even gonna imagine what that feels like. We've had good people in our lives get diagnosed, good people in our lives who have passed away, and we will always question, but as long as we question God, He's okay with that. And I have scripture to back that up, and that's another lesson in its own. But He's okay with it. You know, that's at least a conversation that you have with your Father, and not abandoning, okay? Creating that big umbrella where He sees that you're a sinner and you no longer have that relationship with Him. He's there, you just got to take that umbrella down, okay? So in closing almost, listen to here. When your kids call out, when you see them in their darkest hour, are you there for them? Kind of a stupid question, right? For all of us. I know quite a bit of you. You're right there. You're there for them, okay? Do you allow some things to happen to your kids? Painful as it may seem, just so they can learn that lesson. And it's a dark moment for them when they go through something hard. It's a dark moment. It's actually, I would even say it's a dark moment even for the parent. It's tough sometimes to let your kids go through something like that when you know the right answer, but they have to go through it. But how quickly are you or do you pick them up, those who have smaller children, or put your comforting hands on them, whether it's just on their shoulders or a hug? And how soon afterwards do they stop crying or sadness more than now they feel comforted? You comfort them, and we hope they grow from that and become stronger, hoping they know we are there for them, right? You tell your kids everything will be all right. And that they should never worry that you will always be there. When you soon forget, that's exactly what our Father is saying and said for decades and centuries to us. Why do we teach our kids lessons to let them know that we're there for them? But now take that experience and believe that our Father allows our free will to go through those experiences just to know He is right here with us. With His arms open wide, His hands and arms reach. Go through your hard times. And I will say this from the day that I die. Go through your hard times, but in faith, know that God is right there and He's got you going through that moment in your life for a reason. Because that's the only way we're going to grow. And I have to remind myself that all the time. We've been through some hard times. My wife and I have been through some hard times. And I'm not here to compare to anybody's hard times. We've all been through some hard times. Very hard times. And we will question God, and it's okay to question God. It is so okay, as long as it's a prayer. And knowing that it's just a moment of weakness that we have, but also to know that God is right there. Okay, I have great feelings of joy, even through my hard times, knowing that I'm there for a reason, that God has put me through that. And man, do I ever learn from it and grow from it. One of my hardest times was divorce. It was hard for me. And that's a long story in itself. And it was a dark moment. And it was a dark moment for my kids. My son had to confront me the other day. This happened when they were young. They were, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. But my son, who is now 18, or about to be 18, confronted me a couple of months ago, maybe 2 months ago. And he unloaded how he felt during that time. He blamed me for everything. And he was so nervous. His hands shook. He almost didn't get through it. And I knew this time was coming. And he asked me a bunch of questions. And I said, son, I would love to answer those questions, but in order to answer those questions, it'll change your mind about a lot of things. And so I must stay humble and know whatever feelings you have, blame it on me. Put it on my shoulders, because I don't want you to look any different on anyone else that you have grown up with. And he's like, Dad, that's the exact wording that I thought you would say. And I totally forgive you. He spent years thinking a certain way. But I didn't want to open that up. I had to hold that in. Okay. So those are hard times. Any last comments, complaints, concerns on this? I don't want us to end on a doom and gloom, especially right before Thanksgiving. And I hope I've actually taught you guys something that the Holy Spirit's laid upon my heart to share with you guys. I actually had to set aside a few things that I like to do during the week at school just to study this lesson here. That was really weird. Why did I just do that? So, Dwayne was exhausted. 22 people, including 7 kids under age 6, were crowded into this family's house for Thanksgiving. Dwayne, Dwayne, called a little voice. Oh no, 3-year-old Chris had found Dwayne's hiding spot behind the sofa in the basement. They weren't playing hide and seek. Dwayne was just trying to catch his breath. All day he'd been grabbed and thumped by little cousins who thought he was a climbing gym. Chris now leaped onto Dwayne. He stood up and shifted Chris on his back. He squealed and held tightly to his neck as he trudged up the steps with him. Dwayne emerged in the kitchen where his mother, grandmother, and aunt and two uncles were getting dinner ready. Okay, time to go. You're choking me, Chris. Dwayne gasped as he set Chris on the floor. Suddenly, Charles, Natalie, Kyle, John, and Susan and Desiree stormed into the kitchen shouting, I want a piggyback too. No, it's my turn. Sorry, it only allowed for a few names. I would have added y'all in there. Dwayne backed up against the refrigerator and shot a pleading look towards his mother. Okay, kiddo, said Mom, taking the hint. Go wash your hands. It's almost time for dinner, and Dwayne needs to help me. Aw, whined Charles, Natalie, Kyle, John, Susan, Desiree. Mom shooed them out. Aunt Tessa, she's not here, thought she would. Aunt Tessa followed to make sure they found the bathroom. No rest for the main attraction, eh? Mom ruffled Dwayne's hair. Dwayne ducked. He hated being treated like a little kid. He was almost as tall as his mom, after all. Mom handed him a stack of plastic plates. Here, take these to the kids' table. He'd forgotten, the kids' table. He'd forgotten that he would be eating with the babies, separate from the adults. He hoped the kids would be too hungry to bother him. As soon as he set down the last plate, the band of munchkins marched back into the room. Fortunately, Aunt Tessa saved him. No, it's time. It's not time to play with Dwayne. Find a chair and sit down. Dwayne sighed, started looking for an empty chair when his mom patted his shoulder. Maybe you'd like to sit with the adults this year, she said. I saved you a place next to Dad. It was Thanksgiving, but Dwayne, it suddenly felt like his birthday. The adults' table. No squealing, no soda spilled on his lap, no grubby fingers stealing his cornbread. Dwayne sat next to his father, too happy to speak. As the adults passed around the steaming dishes, Dwayne looked over at the little kids. They were unusually quiet, just picking at their food. The conversation around Dwayne centered on electric bills and how to repair a roof and what to do with leftovers. He took a piece of turkey and peeked back at the kids' table, just in time to see John steal Chris's juice. Hey! Chris grabbed it back. I don't have anything to drink, John wailed. That's enough juice, Aunt Tessa scolded. Eat your turkey. Dwayne's plate was full. He glanced at the kids, glad to be away from their silliness, and saw Desiree poke Chris. Chris poked back, and Susan started crying. Before, which is kind of weird, these are all cousins. So anyway, before he realized what he was doing, Dwayne grabbed his plate, jumped up, and went over to the kids' table. Hey! Charles, Natalie, Kyle, John, Susan, and Desiree looked up at Dwayne, surprised and excited. Did you hear about the giant squirrel that pounded on the door this morning? Dwayne asked. They stared at him wide-eyed. It was as big as a dog, and it demanded that we hand over Aunt Tessa's special walnut stuffing, Dwayne said. Did you give it to him? Asked Chris. All the kids hoped so. Aunt Tessa was wonderful, but her walnut stuffing, they wouldn't go near it. I almost got the pan to the door, but Aunt Tessa made me put it back, Dwayne said. He pulled over a chair and sat down. Aw, children cried. But one by one, they picked up their forks and began to eat. Dwayne continued, I told him to come back later, that I was sure we'd have a lot left over. I can hear you, you know, called Aunt Tessa. We were just saying how the squirrel, Dwayne pretended to explain, then clamped his hand over his mouth. He whined at the kids before continuing loudly. I mean, we love your stuffing, Aunt Tessa. The children giggled and ate. Some of them even tried the walnut stuffing. A few of them discovered that they liked it. Dwayne wasn't sure how he ended up back at the table, at the kids' table. He just felt needed somehow. Mom walked by and ruffled his hair. This time, it made him feel grown up. How many of y'all during that time thought about your own family? Moments that you have. Just think about that. Let's pray and let's get out of here. Lord, thank you for this family that have come here to listen to this very tough